For joining us today. We really appreciate you kind of being here and appreciate you waiting just a minute to be able to get everything kind of lined up and ready to go. But today's event is called Business Not As Usual, which I think we all can appreciate in these pandemic times in which everything is done a little bit different than what we are anticipating. So today we are joined by some wonderful panelists that I'll introduce here shortly. But first I want to introduce our team a little bit so that you know kind of who's behind and who you can reach out to kind of after this as well. So if we want to go to the next slide, Emily. So for this, we are part of the Career Center, but specifically part of the Business Entrepreneurship and Consulting Career Community. So my name is Kayla Noel. I work as our career advisor, which means that I work with all of the students directly, being able to give advice around career searches, job searches, internship searches, and everything kind of in between. And I'll let the other two introduce themselves.
Everyone, excited to be here today. I'm Emily Comandera. I work with employers in our business entrepreneurship and consulting career community. Wanting to put a shout out too for our LinkedIn group. If you're enjoying today's event or want to know more about events similar to this, a lot of employer opportunities, definitely a great place to join and get connected, and you'll stay informed on what's going on. I just put the link in the chat.
Hello, everyone. I am Akin, a Master's in Human Resources student at Cal-Stat Graduate School of Business. I'm also the Career Ambassador for the BEC community. I am happy to be one of the hosts today with Kaylin and Emily. Have a great day.
Perfect. So now on to kind of the main event. We have some wonderful panelists with us today, and I want to give them all kind of a quick introduction. So to kind of start things off, we have Michelle Gaines, who is the Vice President at Northern Trust and is responsible for product development and management across solutions in the Northern Trust Asset Service Business Unit. She supports product strategy, development, and implementation for clients across the globe. Michelle began working at Northern Trust as a contractor August of 2018 in Chicago and transitioned to partner employee role in January of 2020 in Carney Wharf, London. So shortly after relocating from Chicago to London, she moved to work from home model March of 2020 due to the pandemic, and continues to work in this model until returning to the office as soon as available. So thank you so much, because I know it's about 10 o'clock there right now. So thank you so much for joining us.
You're very welcome. Happy to be a part of it.
And then next up, we have Christina Fernandez, who was born and raised in Chicago. She attended Northern Illinois University in DePaul, where she graduated with a degree in public health. But through her public health internship, she discovered that she loved interviewing and wanted to learn how to be on the other side of those interviews. So she decided to pursue a master's in HR at DePaul full-time and graduated in June of 2020 and joined her current employer, Echo Global Logistics, in January of 2021, right in the midst of the pandemic. So thanks for joining us, Christina.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then next up, we have Genevieve Kombim, who is a global e-commerce marketing analyst at 3M. She is responsible for partnering with internal businesses to drive online strategies and identify demand generation opportunities and execute marketing campaign programs. So Genevieve graduated from DePaul University last fall with her bachelor's in marketing and a minor in management. Thanks so much for coming, Genevieve.
Glad to be here. Thank you so much, Colin.
And last but certainly not least, we have Shannon Parker, who is an actuarial analyst with Zurich North America, where she works on a diverse range of insurance products and is a part of the general liability pricing team. So prior to Zurich, Shannon was a fall 2020 graduate of the Driehaus College of Business, where she graduated with a degree in actuarial science and a minor in mathematics. And throughout her college career, she was the president of the Actuarial Science Club and a College of Business peer mentor. So she currently resides in Chicago and is actively pursuing her actuarial credentials. Thanks so much for coming, Shannon.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So I figured that we would jump right in and be able to kind of start off with a couple of questions for you all. So to kind of start things off, I wanted to make sure to structure our conversation around some of the strategies that you used for your job search or like your job transition as you're kind of going through. So to speak about the pandemic and what it is. So what was your initial reaction to the pandemic while you were job searching?
I can take that one first. So I was finishing up my senior year when the pandemic sort of started in 2020. And I actually lost my internship. So not only was I sort of coming into the fall job search with some apprehension over what jobs would be available, but sort of coming off kind of a little bit of burned from that happening. So I think for me, I just knew, like, you know, you got to keep going. You got to keep just persevering through that. Keep showing employers that, you know, you didn't see the pandemic as the worst thing ever, and I'm going to kind of give up on the job search, but I'm just going to keep moving forward as much as I can. And I think that was sort of kind of something that was conveyed to me as very impressive with candidates, that people who just kind of took it as not necessarily a failure, but a bump in the road, and kept going and really dove into recruiting season despite everything that was going on. I think that worked really well for me. So I sort of spinned it and tried to do that as much as I could. That was sort of my initial perspective.
Awesome. Yeah, I completely understand. The pandemic was a big bump. So I feel like that was a common trend with the people that were able to land those next positions, where it's like, great, what's next? So
absolutely.
Any of the other three want to jump in?
Yeah, I can add something. So from my story, a bit of unique background because I was a consultant for Northern Trust prior to the pandemic. So I was working out of Chicago. I'd literally gotten through my last set of interviews in London on a trip between November and December of it would have been 2019. So basically my background is that I actually was staffed to start work January 2020 in London. And, you know, less than 2 months later, was told to stay at home and work remotely while, you know, just newly becoming a partner, which was a bit of a journey to navigate, having to, you know, be, I think, on a rush of excitement to be in the office and getting to connect with people in person, and then having to sort of switch gears and strategies very quickly to adjust to the work at home environment. So for me, the way I would answer is that the sort of perseverance you have to pivot really quickly came into gear. It's almost like I didn't have enough time to really think about it because I still had to complete onboarding as a new partner at Northern. So that's what I would say was the sort of biggest thing I did the first quarter of 2020 as we were going through sort of the, you know, the change in the way we work.
Most definitely. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Christina, Genevieve?
Oh, I was waiting for Christina.
Sorry. Yeah, I mean, I can jump in really quickly. My, just kind of my experience, a little bit, less traditional than, most job seekers. So, getting my master's, I was fully employed full time. So not necessarily looking for a job, just out of that fear of the unknown during a pandemic, right? We don't know what's going to happen. You have a job secured now. You don't want to leave that security because you just don't know. So for me, I, definitely would recommend keeping that open mind, right? Obviously, the job market looks a lot different this year than it did last year, May 2020. But I would definitely just encourage students keeping that open mind and having those conversations, having any and all, because really, you don't know what would come out of a conversation, even if it's getting a cup of coffee virtually with someone.
Yeah, when the pandemic hit, I had an internship opportunity with 3M aligned already for the summer of 2020. And within the communication we're having, we thought it's gonna go away very quickly. We'll be back in Minnesota and it's gonna be business as usual. And that didn't happen. So we reached in April and 3M was saying that all employees had to work from home. So as interns, we're like, what's going to happen? And I started hearing from my friends, I guess from DePaul, their internships were being canceled. So we're like, I was scared on my part. I was like, okay, what's going to happen? But the communication with 3M throughout the process is they gave us an opportunity to either intern in the fall, and they thought by then it's going to go off and we'll be back in Minnesota again. That didn't happen. So what they ended up doing is they divided the internship. So the people that were graduating in fall of spring of 2020, sorry, they had to start the internship in August, and us were graduating in fall of 2020. We started our internship in winter of 2021. So that was all virtual and very shocking that I still had it and getting to where I am. So yeah, that's a little bit of my little story.
No, and I am starting to hear some trends among everybody where it's like kind of shifted and pivoted last minute, not necessarily anticipating what it was, but kind of persevering through it all. And you actually all started already kind of talking about the next question. So I might combine it with the next two, where the next question is like, what steps did you take to navigate your job search based on these reactions? But then also, how did you market yourself to try to stand out when there was so much competition?
I could start with this one. So from a Northern perspective, when I was switching between consultant and partner, so I really wanted to make sure that I got a good footing through the interview process, because there were several interviews that I had to have as I was transitioning. So one thing I actually did was built a portfolio summary of the body of work that I'd done over the last year supporting Northern as a consultant, and sort of how that benefited the different business units that I supported. And to relate it, I did the same thing prior to Northern. I had a prior engagement company I worked for. And so I took the same approach to build a portfolio in addition to my resume or CV, as it's called in London. And I think that helped sort of set me apart. And after I got through the interviews while they were in person, when we moved to virtual, that helped me from like a networking perspective to build relationships with those who I'd interviewed with. I ended up partnering with shortly after I became a partner. So that was part of, I think, something I did in terms of just trying to market my capabilities that I was coming in-house with. I think I had 10 years of experience, so you got a lot of confidence in what you bring to the table, but obviously the audience doesn't know you to that degree. So it's about trying to sell yourself and have the company understand what value you can bring to the table. So I think I was able to do that with that approach.
I can take this one too. So what my initial reaction, I guess, when I started 3M this winter of 2021 in January, we were actually promised that we were going to get full-time position, at least what I knew at then. And then when we came in, there was something, not a recession basically, but something going on in the internal where no one was hiring in all the divisions. So we didn't know what was going to happen. And we were 10 interns, and we're like, okay, what's going to happen here? How are we going to get jobs? Because this is what we're promised. And what I did is, specifically because it's interns who are coming from different university and they're very smart and very competitive. It's a very competitive industry. But I just, came in with what DePaul taught me was network as much as you can. You never know what's gonna happen, right? And normally when you're networking, it's not about who you know or what you know, it's more about who you know and how you can get there. So I use all those skills. Every single time I would network with someone, I would schedule another appointment with them, just personal one-on-one, getting to know them, my background and what I'm interested in and what I found interested. And that initially got me into the second division that I was. And previously I was in the other division. And then when I got a full-time position, I went over to the healthcare just because of the networking situation that I got. So that's how I actually beat the competition that I was in.
Yeah, and just to add a little bit to that's kind of similar to Genevieve's networking, one of the things that I, definitely did was just, continuing to use LinkedIn, not as a recruiter, but just as myself. So, I think LinkedIn and Handshake are very powerful resources that we have, not only as recruiters, but as, anyone in general who is seeking employment. So, networking plays a huge role in that. LinkedIn is awesome because you get to do your research on someone that you're going to be speaking to potentially for interviews. So definitely just an increase in LinkedIn presence. If you haven't updated your profile, I would say, to anyone seeking employment, that's a huge area of opportunity, especially now, as well as your Handshake profiles. Universities and employers are using that a lot more, especially, this year. So I would definitely say that is really a great area for anyone who is looking to kind of, continue to market themselves against competition.
Yeah, I agree with what everyone said so far. I think I kind of used a little combination of what everyone has said. I think what I learned was in 2019 when I was looking for a job, one of the strongest things I felt I had was when I went to career fairs, I could really kind of talk my way into like an interview or into a relationship with a recruiter or representative from a company. So when the pandemic happened, I'm like, okay, this is my strongest asset. I'm not really able to do that. And so I really took time, kind of like Christina and Michelle are saying, really polishing my resume, really making my online presence powerful and fully descriptive, beyond what I had before. And so I think that kind of gave me a little bit of time to really look at those things that I'd maybe neglected in the past. I had sort of just used my ability to talk to people, and really said, I want to, because I don't have that opportunity, I want to have the best resume that I can possibly put forward. And anytime I'm messaging someone, I want to send that along, and have that really show where I was able to talk in the past.
Yeah, no, and I think that all of you echoed a lot of what we talk about in the Career Center as well, where it's like networking is going to be your best friend, especially during the pandemic, because if you're trying to be different than everybody else, a resume is a resume. Like a piece of paper looks kind of the same way each and every time. So how can you be that different? And it's by being able to network and have those conversations and use your connections through LinkedIn. So I think that those are wonderful to hear. And I'm glad that it's kind of matching the advice that we give as well. But I think that it's now kind of time to transition. Now you all have these roles. So kind of talking in that next step. So I'll hand it over to Emily.
Yeah, moving on to the next section, Kayla did a great job talking us through some strategies used in your job search. Our next category of questions is going to be more focused around that transition period from school or work to that new role during COVID. So I'll start it off with, what are some challenges that you faced during this transition period between jobs or between your school and that job?
I can help kick off here. I would say for me, the biggest challenge was I migrated from the US into the UK right before the pandemic. So while I was able to get through all of the sort of legal paperwork you go through to get a work visa, et cetera, and that's all sponsored through Northern when you're taken on as a partner, I just moved from corporate apartments into my flat condominium a week before we were told to work from home, which meant that I didn't have a chance to set up Wi-Fi. I had nothing. My phone service was a little bit different, so it didn't allow me to port and use that as a hotspot. I had to immediately go to a local software store just to get a digital card until my installation came. Then the installation was delayed about a month or two out because of everyone reacting to COVID. And then by the time it came, I just ended up going through a self-install, which
Oh
was
my
no
gosh.
issue. So I was adjusting to that. I had different challenges with moving into the new flat, understanding how to pay, electricity and things like that. They're very different than what we would do commonly in the States. So just getting everything set up and having to also try to focus on the work that I had, because you typically have client interfacing projects and they don't lend itself to, just, sort of disappearing. So so I had to, kind of maintain some level of sanity at work while off camera I'm probably, panicking at the fact that my connection is not stable. So for me, it was more of a living situation transition, not having as much time as I would have liked to react to it, but happy to say I made it. But it's something I will never forget.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I feel like that's taking the whole challenge of moving apartments and setting up internet to the next level. I feel like it's always a
Yeah.
hassle, but that definitely sounds like the next level of that. So I'm glad you made it through.
Yeah.
I just started my job in January, so I was sort of lucky. It seemed like a lot of the hiccups with technology and getting everyone their equipment, the company where I work now, had kind of worked those out. I had personally never started a job remotely, so I found that to be some of the biggest challenge. You're not going in and seeing how the culture is, how people are working together and collaborating. That's all happening behind the scenes. Even just meeting people, it's sort of awkward. How do how's the etiquette here? Do people just call each other on Teams? Do people schedule meetings? I think that was the biggest thing for me, is sort of acclimating myself to the culture while I'm not even there. So not only was I sort of trying to learn this whole new job from this career, but I was really trying to observe kind of how everyone was working together so that I could sort of fit in without having that in-person perspective. So I found that to be the biggest challenge. But I will say that I think we all work for large companies. It seems like they're really trying their absolute best to welcome people, even in the digital age. A lot of people may still choose to work from home in some capacity later. So I think they're really embracing those types of, whether it's an event or, like a happy hour. I felt really welcomed, even though it was a challenge in the beginning.
Yeah, very similar experience to Shannon. I started here in January of 2021. I have been into the office once. There was a total of less than 10 people in our entire 2 floors of our company. So, not much interaction as I normally would have. So starting off onboarding virtually and just starting off a new role in general, that is a challenge. You get to a point where, not only you have to market yourself against people competing for a role, once you're there, you've also got to, build those relationships within the company, especially in larger, companies. But I will say, with my role specifically, it allows me to work with different departments and meet different people. And that's really, kind of one of the things that I, enjoy the most, is that, with the flexibility that I have, I'm meeting people in all different departments. When it gets to the point of us being back in office, it's just a matter of meeting these people who I know from a screen in actual person, in person.
I don't know if any of you saw that Saturday Night Live sketch, but they did this whole like meeting someone for the first time in quarantine kind of joke, and it's something we can all relate to. But yeah, I think that'll be really interesting.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, to Christina and Shannon. I had the same similar situation because I didn't know what to expect when you're starting off in a virtual world where you've never done that before. But the challenges, I guess, that I faced as I started was, how do you communicate with someone you want to network with? How do you start that initial reaction, or how do you communicate with them? And what I did is, and I'm so thankful for 3M, is they have made it really easy and similar. It's either someone will be like, okay, can I just make the initial introduction, where you don't have to feel awkward about it. So you create that organization. But at the same time, I feel like you just have to go out of your way and present yourself. If you really want something, no matter how challenging it is, to talk to someone virtually. If you really want to do it, you just gotta get it. So that's literally what I did. And yeah, a little bit.
That's great. Yeah, it's all about putting yourself out there, even in the virtual world. I would love to hear from you all. What are some things, I know this transition was a difficult transition, but what are some things that your employer did that made the transition easier for you? Or outside of work, what are some things that helped, make this transition a little bit easier for you?
I can kick this off. So, for me, starting off, I did have, about a 2-week period of onboarding. One of the things that, my manager did for me, he had a preset schedule of, what I would be doing those 2 days. So, obviously in office, I would be able to, have meetings in person. When you're at home virtually, if you don't have a schedule of what to do, you're kind of just sitting in front of your computer wondering what the next steps are. So I did have that preset schedule, which helped a ton. A good portion of my scheduling the first 2 weeks was meeting a lot of people, having one-on-one conversations with people I will be working closely with. So I would say, that was definitely a huge help with just, overall learning about ECHO, learning about, the departments I would be recruiting for, and just meeting everyone I work closely with. And, not having meetings about work, that early on, but just getting to know everyone's background and, just fun facts about them.
That was a huge thing that I did too, just going to as many meetings as I could and meeting people as much as I could. At Zurich, we have a less structured and less formal onboarding. They kind of just throw you into stuff and, let you go, which is sort of scary, but exciting at the same time. And kind of like Genevieve mentioned, I had to really force myself to, just message people and say, hey, is there anything I can help you with? Is there any meeting I can tag along with? And just kind of be a fly on the wall and sit, even if I don't totally know what's going on, just being as involved as you can, because I feel like when you're at home too, you can have a little bit of like idle time, you're not in an office, you're kind of on your own. And I wanted to really put like a really good impression for my first job and let them know that even if I'm at home, my presence is still going to be there. And so just really diving headfirst into anything that's available, regardless of if you know what it is or not, just getting the experience.
And I'll add to Shannon, and I had the similar situation where you were just given your project and that's it. And it's like, okay, what happens? How do I navigate this and all that? But I had an incredible manager in my other side of division where she was just there. She would set up weekly meeting to go over anything that I don't understand, any questions that I have, to make it so easier. And I could even hear from other people, they didn't have the same similar experience as I did, which I think I was really grateful on my side that I had her, to support me through it. And then I had, just going through it, and it was just helpful, I think, on my side, having her go through it.
And for me, the way I would answer that is Northern provided a ton of resources. So just to give a few highlights, we had specialists who came in who started giving us tips and tricks on how to take time for ourselves, how to create balance with the new work from home environment. We started, some teams started fitness, yoga, virtual, get-togethers where we normally might, have that in person or virtual happy hours. We happy hours in person, but now virtually we set those up for some teams. So there was a lot of flexibility there. I would say we also implemented good guardrails in terms of sort of the no meeting times throughout the week. So certain organizations set it up where, we could, ensure that not one team was being bombarded, because one unique thing about Northern is we've got partners in all regions across the globe. So when you move to a work at home model, sometimes you might actually end up working more hours or getting pinged more throughout the day because of how many time zones are, you take out the driving time to work, take out how much time it probably took to get ready in the morning, and take out the fact that majority of, say kids were out of school for the parents. So there was actually, you think maybe more time gained during the day, but in actuality, we did have to work with teams to create sort of guardrails so that, not one individual was feeling overburdened by the amount of, invisible free time that looked like the pandemic created in the day. But there was a ton of support from, from the different things that HR provided to the support of each of our organizations, and my leadership was great, and always constantly encouraging us to either, take off a few hours early on a Friday, or just to make sure that we had some balance in our own personal lives to, find something creative to do and get out and exercise, rather than, understanding that we were going to be spending hours at our desk throughout the day. So yeah, so those are some of the things we did to sort of help ease us through.
That's great. I would love a virtual yoga, as I feel like that's such a nice break from a virtual happy hour. So that's really fun. Well, it sounds like you all have learned a lot about remote work and how to be successful, in that transition. I would love to hear, as our last kind of question within the transition period, knowing what you know now, what are some things you might have done differently?
I can take this one. When I started, I feel like I was so consumed into getting to know work and networking, which was great. But then they were like, like yoga, Michelle said, or some online fitness classes that people were taking at work, which I wish I could have done that. And now, because I'm now full time, it's like, okay, I have to do this. And I had time as an intern, I could have done that. So that's one thing, if I had to go back, is take advantage of those little things that they're giving you so that you can relax your mind, or just sleep during the day so that if you're tired, that'll be very helpful, because it's time consuming to be virtually the whole day for 8 hours, especially if you're coming off from school, which you didn't have to be at school the whole 8 hours, to now working full-time 8 hours. That's a little different. Yeah.
Absolutely. Work-life balance and self-care, very important.
I think I was putting a lot of pressure on myself in the beginning. I had worked so hard to get a job during the pandemic, and I just kept on telling myself, do not screw this up. You're very lucky. You don't want to have to go through this again. And I think what I learned talking to people after, a couple weeks, is that everyone, even people that have still been working remotely for a year at a company or been there even longer, they're still trying to figure it out. People are still trying to figure out what works for them, but like Genevieve was saying, boundaries at work and stuff. It's all kind of still ebbs and flows with, my team. We have to be, we have to constantly adjust. So I think for me, it would be just kind of going into it and being like, you know what, everybody's going to make mistakes. Everybody's going to still try to figure out this, and just, go with the flow and do the best I can, and don't put too much pressure on yourself, because people are really flexible and really understanding with everything that's going on.
That's great advice. Yeah, everyone's learning. And I think, continuing to learn throughout all of this is also really important too.
Absolutely.
I think I would say for me, one thing I would definitely do differently is just getting involved in, just some of our ERGs here at Echo a lot sooner. For me, I gave myself, a little bit of time to just, overall learn the industry and, become familiar with my role, since it was a transition. But definitely think, looking back now, getting involved in different ERGs that, I want to be a part of a lot sooner, that would have just helped a ton more, even meeting people within our company. We've got branches, and about 30 other branches. I don't necessarily see the people that we work with in California on a day-to-day basis, but having joined like an ERG would have given me an opportunity to maybe work with, some of our, employees from California or, Nashville. So that would definitely be something that I would do just a lot sooner. Just also great opportunity to meet people that you don't necessarily work with every day.
Absolutely. Yeah, ERGs are great for some of our students who are on the call that might be wondering what that acronym stands for. It stands for Employer Resource Group. So a lot of larger companies have more smaller, close-knit communities based on certain identities or different kind of interests, and they're a great way to network and meet people once you're on the job. Well, thank you all for, all of your wisdom on transitioning to a new role during this time. Our next section, what we're going to cover is going to be more about adjusting to the new role during COVID and more working virtually tips. So I'm going to let Akin take this from here.
Thank you, Emily. Thanks. From all that I have learned so far, it appears that there is not much about what we learned in class that could have prepared us or you guys for a lot of things that you had to endure and walk through in the course of this transition. I have a couple of questions, and one is, what are some ways that you build connection with your team, your new team? I know Shannon mentioned something about, reaching out to a couple of them, to ask what she could do, so that they would know that she was always available. But I'd like to hear from, Genevieve, Christina, and possibly Michelle.
I can start with this one. So my strategy for networking is always to make sure that it's got some meaning behind it. So there are thousands, hundreds of thousands of employees and partners and consultants at Northern Trust. And one of the big things about networking culturally there is about networking smartly, which means that you don't just call just to, because you see someone's name on a document or you see them working on something, you try to see how that fits within what you do, or try to have some meaning behind if that relationship could help explain a new business or from a technology perspective, a new tool that would be useful to you. So one of my strategies was connecting first with people that I knew I was going to work with from a product perspective. I work in product development. So a lot of what I do is sitting in between business partners who are SMEs and operations folks and technology. So I needed to build some relationships for that, specific to my products. But for those who I networked with who were not in my direct team, what I did was try to find background about them that I could then, see if it would be useful for me to have an actual relationship with them. And usually that helped tailor who I would need to go to from a networking perspective, because when you work for someone like Northern Trust, you're going to have to be very intentional with who you're reaching out to, because you don't want to just, you'll get an answer. I will say that culturally speaking, in Northern is very open. So you'll get an answer, but I don't know that it will be of value time-wise if you don't do some filtering at first. So that was one of my strategies.
I can take this one as well. For me, it was just basically reaching out to people. So when I started as an intern, I was in the integrated marketing area side, and I was helping with a lot of research. What I had found with my research is I had enjoyed working around e-commerce very much. And that's because I have a digital background at DePaul with my bachelor's degree. So I wanted to get involved as much to know about the e-commerce side, just because I just found it intriguing. And what I did is I would set up some appointment with people that are in the digital space to understand their role, why they like it, why they choose that field they're in, and to also relate that back to what I learned in school and what I learned throughout my internship career, and why I feel like, not precisely saying I'm selling myself up like I need the job right now, more like why that would relate back to what they're doing right now. And so that's that's initially what I did throughout my internship, is get network with people that are in my area or interest. And then with my internal team, we'll just schedule a weekly meeting, talking to each other, having any questions that that are confusing or need clarification on, and we build those relationships based on that. And that's how I have been able to do it.
And for me, starting off, I did utilize my manager a ton. He, made recommendations, and, people he thought it would be good for me to connect with, and you just, speak to. Again, with my scheduled onboarding, he already had some pre-planned people that I would be working closely with to get to know, but just offering additional recommendations of people within the company that would be just people that would, provide value to just my learning as I was onboarding definitely helped a lot.
Thank you. Shannon, do you want to add one or two things?
No, I agree with what everyone says. I think I could have used a lot of that advice when I started. So.
All right, thank you. All right, so I just moved to the next question. There are a number of us that are looking to be in the positions that you have been in, especially as interns, in the next few months. What are your biggest takeaways for anyone in this situation that you were in?
I would say network as much as possible. Think like Christina said, utilize LinkedIn. It's just growing. Even at 3M, people find a lot of people through LinkedIn, and they connect with each other. If you can schedule an appointment with someone that in a field that you feel like you're very interested in, schedule it. Everybody is willing to help, especially right now with the pandemic and what had happened. Everybody is just flexible to help you navigate your career path, whatever you want. So don't be ashamed or scared. Just put yourself out there, and the right opportunity will find you whenever it can.
Yeah, adding to that, I would say, take that initiative, do not be afraid to reach out to recruiters. I love when students reach out to me about positions, because it shows me that they're interested, that they, took that initiative, and, definitely have an interest in the role. So do not be afraid. Reach out to us, stay active on Handshake. Employers are messaging a lot on there, as I mentioned. So, just, continue to put yourself out there, meet as many people, and be open to any and all conversations, even if it's a role that you, aren't necessarily, something that you were looking for, but someone reaches out to you about a role. Still take that conversation. We find oftentimes that we speak to students who, might not necessarily be a good fit for this role, but hey, we have this other opportunity, and based off of our conversation, it sounds like you might be an even better, fit for this one. Let's talk a little bit more about it. So just be open-minded as well.
All right, thank you. All right, so I'll just ask my last question before I hand it over back to Emily and Kaylin, and then any other person who might have any question to ask. Are you looking forward to resuming back at work, physically, or you would just like to continue virtually?
I can answer first. I think I'm looking for a mix of both. So just recognizing that, in my opinion, and based on what we can see, COVID's effects will have sort of multi-year impacts. Even while we, definitely Northern is going back to at some level of a work in office, we are going to have a flexible approach to it. So where there's business need, you might be in, 2-3 days a week. Where there's not, you'll be work at home, and then there will be an option for say partners or consultants who just don't feel comfortable being in the office even after it's available. So I think that from what I see from Northern and other firms in our industry, it'll be quite open. And me personally, I'm almost impartial. I think that I will definitely go back in the office a few days. But I'm probably one of those people who, just like you get a software update from Apple, I'm the person who waits a while they get the kinks out. So, I I might wait a few weeks extra or a month extra before I just, I'm not a first in type of person. So at least when it comes to the pandemic. So yeah.
I'm the same way. I actually got rid of my car during this, so I'm hoping to be kind
Same.
of one of the last people that go back, so I don't have to, buy a car right away. But yeah, I've really enjoyed it. I feel like I tell people, when I've worked full-time jobs before where they've been in person, I've felt like my Monday through Friday, I sort of like live my job, and then the weekend is where I get everything done. And now I personally feel like because I work from home and we also have a flexible schedule, so I'm usually done around like 3:30. I have so much left in my day that I can do. And I feel like I kind of have a life during the week now, which is really exciting. But I do talk to people that I work with that were in the office, and we have a huge headquarters in Schaumburg, and there's like amazing food and free coffee, and like people play ping pong, and there's like a gym. And I'm like, okay, so I go back and forth. Like I want to stay at home, but I also want to experience that. So I feel kind of like what Michelle said, Zurich is probably going to take more of a flexible approach. They're going to kind of let people decide in the beginning and see how things go with allowing some people into the office. And I do hope that they allow for some flexibility because I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, similar to, both Michelle and Shannon looking for some type of hybrid, which, I know ECHO is currently in the works of, figuring out what that return to office looks like. So, definitely looking forward to hybrid, getting that flexibility, that we've gotten a sweet taste of now with this virtual world. So, more to come on that, but definitely looking to just, going forward, being in some type of, hybrid, some days in office, some days virtual.
I'll add to that, and you guys just nailed it. For me, I'm a remote work. Mine is remotely working, but with what I've talked to my manager so far, is I basically want to go back to the office, but since it's going to be in Minnesota, what I'm trying to do is, if I cannot be at work from January to March, since it's the coldest time at the time, and then go back to work from then, that would be great. And which I think everybody's working like flexibility, like everybody said, and I'm so glad with 3M, they have embraced the flexibility to give the option to their workers to either be remotely or be back in the office, and that's just up to you. So I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you. Awesome. All right. So I don't know, Emily, are you there? I'm heading over back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Akin. So we still have time for any student questions as well. I apologize if my screen had moved over from, I'm working off of one screen, so it's always a little bit of a struggle, but that's what the chat was for. But for all the students on the call, if you have questions for any of our lovely panelists, please make sure to put those in the chat, or you're welcome to unmute yourself.
And while we wait for that, if any of the panelists, if you have any other words of wisdom that you want to impart on us in terms of your transition, we would love to hear from you.
I would like to give a shout out to the Career Center, I would say, in your guys' office. I would say that's something that I didn't know about until the end of my junior year. And I think I wish that's something I would have known earlier. Getting to talk to career ambassadors, getting my resume reviewed by Kaylin and chatting with Emily through my club. I think that was something that I would utilize even more if I was on campus right now, especially in the virtual environment. I know you guys post a lot about different events with, stuff like this, as well as with companies. And I think everyone should utilize the office as much as they can, because it really, really helped me in my job search. And I think a lot of students could utilize that as well.
And I agree with Shannon, and use as much, if you're having an interview or anything, go on the Career Center's website. They have some great tools to help you prepare for interview, and I use them a lot. I did a mock exam interview where I utilized someone in the Career Center to help me, and I checked like some questions that, you know, employer, like the, what they call them, the, I forgot the name of the questions that the behavioral questions.
The
Yes.
behavior.
The behavioral questions that, you know, you go through, you don't realize that, oh, a lot of people think it's easy, you know, it's just questions they ask you, but if you can prepare for them, it will help you so much when you're interviewing instead of guessing the answer.
I mean, you all are making me blush. We really appreciate that. We do put in a lot of hard work to be able to help out. So I'm glad that it's kind of echoed from you all as well, that we are very much available to be able to help kind of across the board and have lots of resources on our website. So please don't hesitate to kind of reach out to get that help. So we're definitely there.
And I'll also add, if anyone is interested in international work, I will say that I graduated with my master's from DePaul in 2016, so a while ago, but I took an international business class with DePaul, and we studied in Berlin and Prague. So that introduced me to working in EMEA very early on, back in 2015. So I will say, even in addition to the DePaul Center, Peter Adraba was my professor, and to this day I keep in touch with him. He gave me some insights about working abroad, given he's a Czech nationalist. So they gave me insight early on. So like anything, I always feel that, you know, what that basically means is be intentional about the plan that you set for yourself. To be honest, there's so many opportunities that I almost think nothing is achievable these days, or not achievable these days, that you can, you know, pretty much get as far as you are willing to put in the work for. So there's so many resources that are offered at DePaul from a networking perspective. And so DePaul is slightly a reason why I ended up working in London. So I would say that the university always has good resources in that like, so.
Yeah, just kind of echoing off what Michelle mentioned, you know, a good resource as well is just your own peers in classes, right? So, you know, just thinking about, you know, my master's program, there was a ton of, you know, full-time employees from all, you know, all different types of industries, different companies that you're able to network with. You know, I've had people who I know, you know, reach out to me and say, hey, saw you worked at ACCO. There's an opportunity that you are hiring for that I'm interested in. Can you share a little bit more? Any tips, you know? Anything like that. So, you know, just your own peers in class are definitely a great resource to use as well.
Yeah.
And I'll just add more to it. Use your professors, not use them in a bad way, but just ask them questions, and they are there to help you and to navigate, you know, this transition if you're going into work or whatever. But your professors are your number one best friends. So build that connection with them, because you never know. With DePaul, most professors are also, you know, people who are employers, or they know people that, you know, who are employers are looking for students to work at their organization. So if you can build those connections with your professors, it will be a very huge advantage to you.
Amazing. So we have just a couple of minutes left. Does anybody have a last minute before we let Michelle go to bed, since she's there?
In the meantime, I'm launching a quick poll, if you wouldn't mind. But we did get a couple responses in the chat from students. Student agreeing about the Career Center and the courses, and then also a student mentioned they wanted to do international public relations, which is really cool. Michelle, I definitely recommend those international study abroad courses whenever they start offering them again. I know they were put on pause this year, but they're a really good opportunity for students. I had the great fortune of being able to attend as a staff member, and it was a fantastic experience. You get to go to, depending on what you're doing, you get to go to all these different companies. The international business one was through economics, and you went to Ireland, and it was, there's lots of different places that they go, but you get, you know, set up kind of employer visits, and it's pretty exciting.
Well, as you are kind of filling out this poll, I want to do another huge thank you to our panelists. This was an amazing event. We learned a whole bunch, and I think that all of the information that you were able to provide us is going to be hugely beneficial for all of our students, both the ones that were able to attend today, as well as some that are going to be watching this through a recording. So we really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy lives and your transitions that are happening to be able to come and speak with us today. So thank you very, very much for being here.
Thank you all so much. It means the world, and it's always great to work with alum, and because you all have that DePaul connection, and it's just great to have such an awesome panel today.
Thank you so much. And anyone that wants to reach out, definitely reach out to us or anybody here. 3M is hiring for fall interns, so reach out if you want to be here. So I'm here to help as much as I can, because I'm at DePaul and I believe in that. So yeah.
And same for Northern Trust. We are hiring in all regions now. While travel is still restricted, but there are opportunities. So definitely for Kayla, if I'm saying it right, or anyone else, feel free to reach out if interested.
Same with Echo. We have, lots of opportunities. So, definitely feel free to, connect on LinkedIn. I'm happy to, just kind of share a little bit about our open positions.
And same, yeah, find me on LinkedIn. Love connecting with everyone and seeing what everyone's up to and all that stuff. So thank you.
Perfect. Well, thank you all. Just to confirm with the LinkedIn, I'm happy to, for those who weren't able to attend, I can share your LinkedIn profiles if you're comfortable with that.
Yeah.
But okay, great. That'll be a great place for folks to connect with you all after the event. But thank you again for your time and wisdom. And I definitely feel invigorated about the work-life balance, about finding boundaries with work, and also really kind of committing to meeting new people and joining ERG groups. And I definitely have a lot of takeaways as well. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect. Well, have a great night, everyone. We hope to see you at future DePaul business, entrepreneurship, and consulting events. But in the meantime, definitely make sure to join our LinkedIn group, and we'll keep you in the know there. And thanks again.
Thank you. Bye.
Great. Thank you.